Let me know when we're on, huh?
Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening, everyone. We do see that we have few participants logging in, so we are going to give them a minute or two to settle in. Meanwhile, I would like to welcome you all to tonight's webinar. Teachers, wear your own oxygen mask first. This is presented by Islanders Education's Innovate Symposium. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to cover some topics for you. The webinar will be recorded, and participants, you all are muted and the video option is disabled. However, we do welcome your comments and questions. Please, you can look at the Q&A chat box there and send us any questions that comes to your mind during this session. We will try to accommodate the questions at the end of this session. So tonight with us we have Ms. Lina Ashar, the founder of Kangaroo Kids and Billabong High. We are very glad to be a partner and also have been very much following your work and have been very appreciative of what you have been doing that to us and also education as a whole. So Ms. Lina, how is your week going?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
All well here, all well here.
Yeah. So I just came to you also recently came from another webinar. Must be a very hectic time for you to come from one to another. So thank you very much for accommodating us and joining us. And we are very privileged to have you with us.
I'm privileged to be here. I'm truly honored to be here. So I'd like to say hello to all the teachers there who do know me, who teach at Kangaroo Kids or Billabong High, and to all the other teachers. We're all part of one community, we're one fraternity, and we're all together at this time. And I'm really, really honored to be speaking to all of you. So you let me know when you'd like me to start my screen sharing and start the session.
Yeah.
And I welcome questions. Today my presentation is less about teaching and it's more about perhaps influencing the way you're feeling at this time. And if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
I think we are good to start now. So Ms. Lina, I will stop my video and go mute. All yours.
Are we all good?
Yeah, you may start.
All right. So it's I'm so honored to be here today, and I think at this time more than any other time, all the things I've been saying about education are actually coming true. What we're relying most on as mankind is whether we have a spirit of optimism and whether we're resilient. And it's how are we seeing this time? Are we seeing it as one of hope or one of despair? So I would like to start now. So this period of time, yes, is deeply unsettling for so many of us because it has attacked life as we know it. It's attacked life as we know it to the very, very deepest core. Majority of mankind lives 95% of their time in their heads, either in the past or in the future. And this is one time we cannot really be living in the future at all. So a lot of us are ruminating about the past. We don't know how to live in our heads in the future because the future is just so uncertain at this time. At times, I know you will be experiencing feelings of confusion, of loneliness, of isolation. This is also a time when, you know, humanity is feeling at its most vulnerable, because we are a species on top of the food chain that hunted. I'm not sure how to go to my next slide. So we're feeling exploited. We are at, you know, as humanity, we were always on top of the food chain. And for once we're not. We're sort of feeling that we're vulnerable. And where we once used to hunt, exploit, and consume, we are for once feeling hunted, exploited, and consumed by a tiny speck of a virus. This, of course, leaves us feeling not in control. And the first step is to bring about an awareness that we're actually not in control. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is, when you're faced with an experience that you don't like, there's actually only 3 options that man has available to him. The first is to change our life condition, which is, you know, if you're in a bad marriage, you can get divorced. If you're in a bad job, you can get another job. But this is one time when we do not have an option to change our life condition, because what the virus is doing to us personally, or to our families, or the whole of humanity, makes it impossible for us to change anything at all. So what do? We have no control. The other second option we do have is to actually suffer. And a lot of people are in the world feeling that they're victimized, and they're feeling this whole sense of suffering. They're keeping their mind stuck in an anxious gear, and the thoughts that keep ruminating are ones of uncertainty, loneliness, and fear. We as mankind are actually programmed and hardwired for certainty as a survival mechanism, and a lot of people are going into survival and fear mode. One of the things I would encourage all of us to do is actually not watch a lot of news at the moment, because news is actually feeding our amygdala the trigger response to fear, and the less we watch, the better off we will be. But we actually do have one more option, and that is to change what this period of time means to us. I have personally chosen to think of this time as a much needed period of time as renewal for mankind. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you will see the kinds of thoughts that I'm having about this time. And I'm actually sharing all these thoughts with everyone so that other people can choose to have these thoughts with me. My first story is to choose how I'm feeling about this time. And this is one of my posts. Our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, our breath. Are we aware of everything our body is experiencing? Do we notice our attempts to control all of these experiences? As we begin to notice, we will begin to also discover a key aspect of reality, that we are not in control. Meditation is really ultimately about equanimity, being aware of what is happening and not reacting to it, not pushing it away or grasping for it and not fighting against it. However, if there is pushing, pulling, or fighting, then we should become aware of that. Meditation can lead us to an increased recognition that we are in ever-present harmony with the flow of life. It can help us reduce stress and pressure. It can lead to an increase in focus and creativity. There are many, many people around the world at the moment who are homeless and who cannot stay safe at home, and many essential workers who must leave their houses daily to ensure that the rest of us remain safe. So for the few privileged of us who have food and shelter, should we consider ourselves as locked down or meditating? I would also like to draw people's attention here to the kind of words. Every word we speak creates a structural change in our brain. So if we use the word locked down, it gives us very negative feelings. So try and use words that are uplifting for us at the time. I have hope for the future, as we have paused the busyness of our lives, constantly doing, to a state of forced quiet where we can start being. Let me read out from one of my posts that has an image of the planet with a pause sign on it, very much like the pause sign on your remote control. And the creative copy reads, "This pause has reshaped how we think about ourselves and has transformed our values. Is this the time humanity will reshape its collective future? If there was ever a moment to think about the future, it is now. One tiny virus has plunged the world into an era of unity, solidarity, and rapid change. We finally realize that we are only a part of a living, breathing ecosystem. There is an awakening that survival of mankind will require more compassionate, caring, equal, and just society. A caterpillar endures a season of isolation before it turns into a butterfly. As I find myself cocooned in isolation, I remember that this is similar to the place where caterpillars go to grow their wings. The quotes that resonate with me and for humanity at this time is this: you are emerging from the cocoon of your former self. There are no limits to the extent of the transformation that is possible for you. How does one become a butterfly? You have to want to learn to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar. While I have no control, or none of us have any control over this time, I do have a choice and agency and control over my thoughts, or what story I choose to tell myself about the experience I am having. I can stand guard at the door of my mind. I can stand guard at the door of my mind and choose what I allow to enter. I choose to believe that this time will shape humanity's collective consciousness and have a beneficial effect on this world. I believe we will rewrite a lot of things, like our definition of success, the way we consume, the way we treat each other. I believe we will look for greater work-life balance and shift the need to always be on and always be productive. It will change the way we work as we realize that remote learning has a lot of benefits personally and on a planetary level, giving us back time and giving the planet improved air quality. We will realize and act from this knowledge that we have an interconnected relationship to the entire universe. During this time, I watched a video of the Wuhan market where the virus is supposed to have started. I also watched a video by Philip Woolen, and I learned that eliminating meat from our diets could end starvation forever. It takes 50,000 liters of water to make 1 kilo of beef. That it is causing the absolute destruction of our earth, greenhouse emissions, and greenhouse emissions from livestock are 50% greater than that caused by all the transport in the world. That poor people are starving because grains are being used for livestock food. If we could solve problems related to water, environment, and health by simply removing meat off the menu, would we do it? I chose to do it. I chose to use this time to show compassion for the livestock being slaughtered for our taste buds, as well as to contribute what I could to be kinder to the planet and to the people who are starving, and I have turned vegetarian at this time. No one needs to choose to be vegetarian. You can choose. I think my whole PowerPoint is going up backwards and forwards. No one needs to choose to be vegetarian. You can choose your own thoughts and acts of kindness as coming from a place of who you are. With everything that is happening, you are choosing to keep impacting the future of the world through the children that you teach. There is a saying that when you touch a rock, you touch the past. When you touch a flower, you touch the present. All of you teachers who are watching this, you choose to continue to touch the minds and hearts of the children you care for. And this is when you actually impact the future. I have never been prouder of the teaching community than I am at this time. It has risen to continue contributing, serving, and loving their students day in and day out. Teachers and people at the front line are showing the world more at this time than ever before in history that you are resilient and kind, and you have a deep sense of compassion. You are creating meaning at this time of uncertainty by creating certainty for your students. By making meaning, you're creating a solid foundation in your deeper reason for living. By choosing to continue your teaching practice, You don't feel like many people feel. At this time, a lot of people are feeling small and powerless. You know that your life matters and that you are significant to all the students you continue to serve. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live for can endure almost anyhow." And more than ever, teachers and doctors have the strongest why at this time. So now to the title of my connection. Wear your own safety mask before tending to your children. Times of challenge are not ones of perfection and productivity. These are times when you must prioritize your emotional and mental well-being over anything else. Remember what the air hostess says as she takes you through the safety briefing. Wear your own safety mask first before tending to your children. This has great wisdom to it. As a teacher, your natural instinct is to nurture and to care. Your natural impulse is to take care of everyone else before you tend to your own needs. Our students, our children, our spouse, our parents. The fact is that you cannot care for anyone else or their needs for oxygen unless you have taken care of your own need to breathe at this time. So work out what it is you need to do to stay calm and present through this time. So here is me signing off with love and a wish that all of you have love and hope in your hearts and in your life at this time. Thank you so much.
You.
Unfortunately, my PowerPoint seemed to act up. I'm working with somebody else's computer.
Thank you so much. It was very insightful, and the whole time I was trying to go deep back in when the time I started to be a teacher from there on, and how my life as an educator has moved around this, and then getting to experience this. Then I was reflecting back on what you just said about the time, then what we have in our hand and what we could do to ourselves to prioritize on us, so that how we could help others along the way. It was a really insightful way of thinking of this, rather than thinking as a lockdown, but thinking is in a positive way. Thank you so much for the very insightful view on it.
It's the people who have the greatest amount of optimism and resilience that are going to come through this time as stronger than ever. It's a time, I know, for a lot of people to rethink everything. Our livelihoods are uncertain. There's so much of uncertainty. We're actually, I think, more than ever before, rethinking the very basis of capitalism and our economic structure. I mean, for the first time, our economic structure is crumbling because we're actually not buying things that we don't need. And people are starting to understand that we could lead simpler lives and more fulfilling and more calmer and more centered lives than, you know, and it's taken a pandemic to do this to mankind, but I truly believe man is going to rise to a level of higher consciousness through this time.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the greatest learnings I had, and this learning came from a course I did with Anthony Robbins, is this: that when you're faced with anything that you don't like, there's actually only three options that you have. One is to suffer, and of course none of us want to suffer. The second is to change our life condition, and at this time we cannot change our life condition. So then we really only have one more choice, and that is to change what it means to us. And so we need to change this to mean something more than a pandemic. We have to think of it as a time of renewal, as a time of, you know, giving pause to the whole structure that we've set up as a capitalist society, and rethink. I mean, there's such inequality in the world, and it's coming to light more now than ever before. I think this will be a great time for teachers as well, because I think finally a lot of parents who are teaching their kids at home have started understanding how important teachers are and how
I cannot agree more. Yeah. Okay. So we do see some questions coming in. Shall we move to the questions, so that we do have some time to accommodate these questions? I will start with the first question coming from Sasha Tazra. What advice would you give to teachers on how to interact better with the students, know about their problems, and help them to overcome the emotional and psychological problems they face during this time?
Okay, so one of the first thing is that we actually want to create connection with our students more important than any form of productivity or any sort of academic outcomes. The second thing I would encourage is to see how much you can make the learning active at home. So for example, I'll just give you examples of some of the things our schools are doing. They're making, letters out of Play-Doh. Out of atta. We create this atta dough to make chapatis. They're doing all sorts of active learning things with their kids at home. They have special days with their kids at home. So they send a note to the parents the day before asking them, that to dress the kids up in red, or that and a lot of children are actually leading the show. I watched an entire story session being led by kids, one after the other, and it's amazing. I think kids are more mindful than adults will ever be, because kids actually live in the moment, and the way they have adapted to this time, whether you're using Zoom or you're using Google Hangouts or you're using Facebook to teach your kids, the way kids have adapted to this time is absolutely fabulous. So I would say keep connection before anything else. So when you come online with your kids, make sure that you're connecting at the heart level with them. Ask them, what's going on in their homes, how are they doing, what are some of the things they're doing with their parents. On my Facebook page, there's a message I can craft it specially for Maldives and send it out, which tells parents how to deal with their kids, because parents themselves need to know that this is not a time to stress over homework and classwork and finishing worksheets. This is a time for connection. This is a time to teach kids to be grateful, because the greatest of parents at this time will be the parents that teach their kids that you have to make the best out of any situation that life throws at you. So instead of, at the dinner table asking kids, have you completed your homework? You will actually ask your kids, what were you in control of today? What were you not in control of today? What were you grateful for today? What is something you took for granted before the coronavirus situation happened? What did you take for granted that you're not taking for granted anymore? So these are ways in which we can actually build our children's sense of optimism, their sense of resilience, their sense of gratitude. And when you do all these things, this is when you actually have healing chemicals flood your children's bodies instead of cortisol, the stress chemical flooding through the body. And this is itself what raises our immunity to, to make sure that the coronavirus does not impact us health-wise.
Thank you so much. It's very important that I think that we feel the connection and try to make best use of this time to be together,
yes,
supporting each other. Yeah.
We know how little we remember from the schoolwork that we did. We don't remember that. What do we remember? We remember the teacher that made an emotional impact on us. We remember that she cared. We remember that, and we all take on avatars of our teachers in various forms. I know I dress very similar to the way my English teacher dressed, because I used to love the way she dressed. I know I connect in a way another teacher connected, because I really loved the way that she connected. So we're the impact and the influence you teachers have over your children is absolutely monumental. Do not ever minimize or and miss, don't dilute the understanding of the impact you have on kids.
I think it's very important that we stay focused and then connected along the line there. Okay. So we do see some, Sajra is saying thank you so for the answer. We've got another question, but it's quite okay. It's quite similar, I think, to the question already you answered. It says how to encourage the students to be more optimistic during this time. Ms. Jana is asking us this question.
So lots of stories, you need to teach kids what the thing that we just spoke about, that everything's just a story in your head. It's about the perception. You can tell them, the two salesmen story, which is the two salesmen who go from America to Africa to look at whether there's an opportunity to set up a shoe factory in Africa. One writes back and says, no opportunity, nobody wears shoes. And the second one writes back saying, fabulous opportunity, nobody wears shoes. So the power of the story, the internal story we tell ourselves is so huge. It's just amazing. If you're dealing with younger children, I did a story session about a book called Ruby Has a Worry, and Ruby can make her worry any size that Ruby wants. And we can start getting kids to articulate what their worries are and how intense their worries are. So we can actually get them to understand that, when Ruby's worry was so small and when Ruby's worry was so big. And with younger kids, we can actually ask them, how big is your worry? With slightly older kids, we can ask them to gauge their worry, that on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the highest, what is the scale of where your worry is at?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful way, again, to connect with them. And I think we are just almost about the time, so we will take one more question. And then let's see, we've got a question from an anonymous participant. Before I go to this question, I do see some hands raised. We're sorry, if you have any questions, you have to post it in the Q&A box here. We have disabled the chat option, so if you have any questions, to post to the Q&A box. We'll be trying to take questions from there. So the question here says, what can teachers and management do for teachers in a normal school day to keep our healthy, well-being and working environment flexible?
So I think one of the other things we'll pick up at this time is that we don't always have to be in a workplace to work. I think a lot of what we call management are going to start picking up the fact that we can have a greater work-life balance by not always being available physically at the place of work. I think we'll also, at this point of time, understand that work-life balance and our emotional and physical health is more important than anything else ever. And I think managements will gradually actually start understanding that they can, they can increase productivity and increase creativity by lessening hours, by, lessening working hours. So at the moment, I don't see any, corporates or any management type people saying, oh, working remotely is not working for us. Everyone is actually, I know the KKL CEO is saying that I've suddenly realized that I don't have to wake up at 5:30 to go to the gym, that I can work out just as well at home and get the same effect as I do in, spending. But by the time I get up and go to the gym and come back, 3 hours of my day is gone. Now I've got 2 hours of that back. We can do so many things also from home. Some of the things that we do, orientations, counseling sessions with kids, PTMs, parent-teacher meetings. We can actually do these now, we know, through Zoom or through any of the other platforms you're using. And this not only gives back teachers time, but it's also going to give back parents time and give and kids time. So you don't have kids, coming backwards and forwards from school every day or on Saturdays because, they need to complete something. They can get assistance online, and it's working out to be just as effective.
Sorry, ma'am, we have a lot of questions coming in for you, and then we also, I'm aware of your session schedule too. So could we just take one more question, if that would allow us to? Yeah. So we've got a question from Ms. Fatman. It says, we know it's very important to continue learning in this new normal situation, but parents here aren't much aware of the new normal situation. Day by day, the support we are getting from the parents have decreased. As a result, are not attending the sessions properly. Education has been least important to the parents in this pandemic, as attending parents are not willing to attend for the sessions. so they don't have to pay school fees.
Oh,
Could you suggest us some of the ways to make parents more aware of this pandemic in a more professional approach?
so one of the things I think we need to make space for is the awareness that parents are grappling with a lot themselves. We need to have compassion for what they are battling. A lot of them are unsure about, the continuing incomes that they're going to receive. A lot of them are on work from home. A lot of them have no help at home. So suddenly you've got mums and dads doing teaching, working, cleaning, cooking. They're playing very, very many roles. I think if we hold sessions for parents every now and again, where parents actually get a platform to share the concerns they have, and if we can counsel them through their concerns, it would be great. I would tell the whole world at the moment, there is nothing more important than connection at this time. There's nothing more important than your emotional well-being at this time, and that is way more important than any education or anything else in terms of content teaching. Of course, we do so much in terms of by way of education, where we're imparting, the correct emotional vibrations that the kids need to receive at this time. So as long as your kids come on to the sessions, it's fantastic. We're having similar problems in India. The whole world is in a period of uncertainty. I know it's more the parents of preschoolers who are sort of thinking that, we don't need to attend school, so we don't need to pay the fees. These are all just very, very real things. But hey, we're still better off than the people who are in restaurants, who are, running gyms and things like that. There's absolutely no certainty about the future for them.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope that I'm sure that I already answered the question for her. We are very sorry that we actually just reached the time for tonight, but we do see a lot of questions coming in. We're sorry that we are unable to answer all the questions here. But ma'am, is there any way that our participants could connect with you?
So they can connect with me on Facebook or on Instagram. And just look for me, Lina Ashar. And if you have any questions, post them to me, and I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you so much. That means a lot for all of us. I'm sure they have a lot of questions to ask you, especially they have been looking forward, since we all are very inspired by work, and we have been looking up to the work that you have done to Kangaroo Kids and Billabong High, and also to education sector as a whole.
And your schools are extra special to me, because not only do we have a partnership, but your schools are being run by one of my dearest friends. He's actually the godfather for my son. So a very, very important family for me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So I think that brings us to the end of tonight's session. Ma'am, thank you so much for the very insightful discussion and view, and how we could take this as a positive way, rather than trying to feel trapped or locked in the situation. And we do really appreciate the time that you gave, and our participants, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and for asking all these questions to us. If you have any more questions, there's the connection that she already have mentioned. We will try to give you the both connections in our follow-up email we'll be sending to you. At the same time, please to have a look at our website. We do have many sessions coming up for you, sessions for kids, parents, and also for educators like you. I think that brings us to the end of tonight. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining and sparing the time to share your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.